Shalom, Hag Sameach, Modim B'Simcha. Tonight we're doing our third part of a series from Sefer Yetzira on creating consciousness. How the creator of the universe, who is all consciousness, created an empty space within himself to contract his consciousness into 8 billion or so souls, however many we can squeeze into this world. That seems to be a debate. But still, we are building consciousness through language. And language, of course, is built out of sounds, symbols, numbers. And we've gone through several stages. First, the creation of space itself and the ideas that of space. In other words, we take for granted things like up and down, but they're created concepts. They're created ideas. They take on life in the spiritual realm. In the spiritual realm, a thought is a real thing. It's just as real as a missile in this world, or an arrow, perhaps a little less aggressive. And so when we take thoughts like real things, then you see the impact of thought on feeling, the impact of feeling on action, and how all three work together to create a human being's ability to perceive and receive from the world and give back to the world. And that creates, of course, man in the image of God, a creator. We are creators. And tonight we're going to be in the second chapter of this master work of Abraham, our father. And we're in the second chapter in the fourth paragraph. For those of you who have been with us before, bear with us. We're going to probably repeat ideas as we always do. 22 foundation letters again. 22 letters, 10 sphero, create 32 pathways. 32 is gematria lev. And that means that the heart is the stamp. You know, like every businessman has a stamp with his company emblem on it, and you dip it in ink. They used to do that back in the day before everything was digital. But that your heart is a stamp of your soul. So when you feel somebody's heart, you're feeling a stamp of their soul. And when you put out your heart, then you're giving out that impression, that spiritual impression that you make on the universe. So these 22 foundation letters we talked about, he placed them in a circle. Now we're leaving the directions of the 6 directions that are shayach to this festival that we're in, called Sukkot, where we take the lulav every morning and shake them in 6 directions, because we're creating space with the etrog and lulav as well. Wherever you go, you create space. You think, no, I don't, Abraham. The space is already there. I just walked into it. Yes, but it's because we're seeing it from the outside in. As our first class said, when you look at the world from the inside out, you realize that you create space by your presence. And if you're a tzaddik, or a tzaddikus, a holy person, then your energy expands space and expands time. And that's why a holy person can live a long time. A lot of holy people didn't live so long, but their days were filled, long days. You ever have a day where you've done so much you can't even remember the beginning of the day? You were so busy doing things and creating and giving and sharing and growing. Those are the long days that make up a whole life. As it says, Ba Avraham Avinu b'yamim. He came into the days. And the days in Kabbalah are the measurements of time-space, and not simply 24 hours. Okay, so these 22 foundation letters were placed in a circle, like a wall, with 231 gates. Now, what are those 231 gates? Well, if you take 22 letter Aleph Bet, and you set it in a circle, and we do this in a meditation where you set the letters in a circle around your head, in your mind's eye, with your eyes closed, in your third eye, inner theater realm, you set those letters up in a circle around your head. It sounds hard, but actually, when you practice, you'll get good at it. It's an amazing thing. It will be a launch pad, I guarantee you. Now, that launch pad of 22 letters, though, is not just 22 letters, because it's the 22 paired with all the other 22. So the pathways are the connectors between Aleph and Bet. and Bet and Aleph. Now, what's a pathway? Well, think of a pathway in this realm of thought and spirituality. It's how Aleph and Bet communicate together and create a new concept called Av. Aleph Bet. Av is a concept. The idea is father. Now, if you take Bet and Aleph, you reverse them, permute them, that's calling in fancy language. The Bet and the Aleph, Av becomes Ba, come. The Father comes. In other words, the whole beginning of the Aleph Bet is already pointing to God, the Creator, the Father, coming into the world. And it goes on further with Bet and Gimel and Bet. Bet and Gimel, Ben Bag Omer, Afoch Ba Kol Ba. Right? And then you switch the Bet, the Bet Gimel to Gimel Bet, and you have Gav. And you have a back. Someone gives you their back. They give you strength, support. And Beged, you add the Dalet at the end, and you have a garment. And then so forth we build with the letters. Now, but all the letters are communicating with each other through these pathways, and those form part of the 32 pathways. And if you take 22 letters with 21 lines and divide it by 2, you get 231 gates. The gate is the union of the letters. It's a gateway of understanding. So when I put hey, and next to it I put I'm thinking of a letter to put had, Dalet. What's hey Dalet? Well, it's had is an echo in Hebrew. So the hey and the Dalet are separate things doing their own thing. But when you bring them together through the pathway, you create a concept, create an idea called an echo, head. Which is interesting. In English, head is, up here, right? But for Hebrew, it's just an echo. So we're echoes of something much greater, my friends. And we're reverberating down the generations. And, something big is going to happen this year. And the world is changing. And for good reason. But this is not a geopolitical discussion this evening. We'll have more of those later. Okay, so these 22 letters with 21 pathways connecting them all creates the 231 gates. It's a very important, famous concept in Kabbalah, because when you learn these gates, Aleph, Bet, Bet, Aleph, Aleph, Gimel, Gimel, Aleph, Aleph, Dalet, Dalet, Aleph, you start to learn all the phonetic groups of meanings. And Hebrew, since we call it the holy tongue, the multiplicities of meaning, the intersections of sound create meaning. Okay? And when you have the 231 down in your heart and your mind, you start to see Hebrew everywhere, in everything, in every sound, in every language, in every communication, in every license plate. Because you start to know the conceptual relationships of all the letters. And even if you don't know Hebrew so well, as you learn more and more regular everyday Hebrew, you'll see the applications into your English or into your French or Spanish, whatever you learn in. And the languages will reveal their connection to Hebrew, which is also amazing. Now, the Sefer tells us after you plate them in a circle, in a walled circle, we used to call that a cyclorama. I think that we went to one once in Atlanta, Georgia. Oh, I was probably too young to appreciate it. The circle oscillates back and forth. This circle, right, what's going on? Because the energy that's flowing through all the letters is communicating with all the letters. You create a spirograph in your brain. Well, that's good. Well, why is it good? Because what happens, those aren't just channels of connecting concepts and ideas. God's light is flowing through them. See, God's light and knowledge are not separate. He is the knower and he is the knowledge. Try to hold that in your mind long enough to see what we're talking about. He is, of course, he's in everything, but he's the totality of all knowledge. You think Google's got a lot of knowledge? La havdil, la million separations. Now, a sign for this setup of the letters and their pathways, which I should show you a nice picture. Here's the old spirograph when we were kids. We have, see that? In Rabbi Kaplan's Sefer Yetzira. If you buy one book of Kabbalah, it's probably the hardest book you could buy to learn, but you will learn it your whole life, and it's worth it. Now, these gates, as they're called, these unions of these two-letter pairs, the Rav gives us a sign. There is nothing in good higher than delight, which is oneg, ayin, nun, gimel, oneg, delight, the highest delight. And there is nothing evil lower than nega, plague, which plague is one translation for nega. It can also be translated as a biblical blemish on the skin, which can be a disease. So what's the chop here? What's the deal? Well, the deal is ayin, nun, gimel, oneg is the same letters as nega. Rather, well, we just switch the letter and you switch the concept. You invert it. You take light and make it dark. You take good and make it evil. Or chas v'shalom, better do it the other way around. Take evil and make it good. When we do this, you start to see how the letters are weaving their conceptual reality into your life. Now, I've put up a few short videos on synchronicity of words. And if you catch those, I think on the YouTube or on my website. I don't know. My websites are getting dusty these days. Everybody's just flash, get it out there. But over there, we talk about this concept more fully. That this synchronicity, one of the ways that God speaks with us is through our own language. Okay. So, oneg, nega. Greatest pleasure, greatest evil. Rabbi Nachman explains it like this. When we do sins, we take the idea of that the sin represents, which is the evil permutation of the letters, the evil order, like ne, ga, nun, gimel, ayin. We actually inscribe that on our spiritual body. So the Torah says, oneg Shabbos, titaneg v'shabbat, right? It is a mitzvah. It is God's will that we have pleasure on Shabbat. And if I turn the pleasure of Shabbat into something very different, into a plague, into a blemish, then I've taken the light that comes to those letters and flipped it. And when you flip the light, you get the opposite of the light. You get the dark, or the darkness. There are all kinds of combinations. Okay, now, so what have we accomplished so far tonight? We've looked at the letters themselves. We looked at how their paired meanings are inversions of each other. Now we see that it also represents conceptual realities like good and evil, happy and sad, pleasure and the opposite. Now, we touched on this idea of the meditation where you actually see the letter Aleph, Bet, Bet, Aleph, Aleph, Gimel, Gimel, Aleph, and you try to go around the whole circle, 231 gates, 231 pairs of letters in your mind's eye. Don't be discouraged if you don't get there the first time. It takes quite a while for even experienced meditators, but the goal is not to get there the first time. The goal is to do it and do it and do it. And then with your perseverance, God will bless you with that. And you will see that I've had some tremendous experiences with that meditation, where I don't want to get too specific right now, but you will definitely have what's called an OOB, out of body, because you're going to enter into what you meditate on. Your mind enters it and joins with it. Then you leave behind. The connection to the body gets much different. much lighter, much thinner. So that's one of the path, one of the steps along the pathway of Kabbalistic meditation. Okay. Nonetheless, we'll be next week. We'll be getting back at Web Yeshiva, and on webyeshiva.org, we do meditations every Thursday night. We start at 8:00. You're welcome. It does is free of charge, and we look forward to seeing you there. And we look forward to sharing more on this holy festival, the more of the great Torah of God and the Kabbalah especially. And we're getting into the deeper level now. And when you see how these letter pairs work together, then you can start to see how consciousness is built on this continuous back and forth of relating to the environment, processing it, and putting something back into the environment with your mouth, with your eyes, with your hands, with your feet. And it's all being done because of this communication of language. And language is the seat of consciousness. And these 231 pathways form the foundation roots of that beautiful tree called language, the Hebrew language. God bless you all. Hag Sameach.